Good morning, Aquarium Online Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sarah. I work in the education department here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California, and you have tuned in for an excellent program because today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, sharks. So if you're ready to talk about sharks, let's get started. Now, I do have an idea of some of the sharks that I would like to talk about, and we've got our beautiful shark lagoon right behind me, but we want this program really to be about what you want to talk about as well. So I'm going to have a number pop up on the screen. Now, I'm not alone here in the studio. I have Stacy who's controlling what you see, and so she helped this number pop up. And then I have Cynthia sitting at our computer, and she's going to take all the questions and observations and things you'd like to share with us when you text this number. So the number is 562-286-1838. And you can text us in your questions or your observations or anything you'd like to know about sharks, and we can really direct this class and talk about what you want to know about these wonderful animals. Now, if you're watching this program live, so it's 9 a.m. on February 17th, you can go ahead and text us. But if you're watching this program and it's a little bit later, we still want to hear your questions, but we ask you email us, and that email is live@lbaop.org. And that's because we're not always sitting at that computer, but we still want to be able to answer your questions. So if you're watching live, you can text us, and after the fact, go ahead and email us. All right, explorers, are you ready to get started? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make some observations. Now, making observations is something that scientists do a lot to kind of learn about an animal or a habitat or something that they're studying. And so to make observations, I'm going to step off the screen and we're going to look at this habitat. This is our shark lagoon here at the aquarium. And I want you to start to think about, what do you see happening in this exhibit? Do you notice any specific animals, any specific things happening, the behavior of these animals? Are there any colors or shapes? Just what things do you notice? Now, what's cool about observations is you're just telling us what you see. So even if you know a ton about a subject, or maybe not so much about that subject, you don't have to have any prior knowledge to make observations because you're just watching and then sharing what that is that you're seeing. So let's see what observations. Now, I know it kind of covers up the screen a little bit, but I am going to have Stacy put up that number again, just so that if you didn't get a chance to write it down, you can see it again and send in those observations. Oh, and I see Cynthia writing, so there's some observations coming in already. Junie from New York. Oh my goodness, that's so cool that you're tuning in all the way from New York. Welcome. Junie wants to know, why do sharks have tails to help them swim? Ooh, excellent question, Junie. So let's watch specifically the tails moving on these sharks as we're making our observations. So you notice they have a tail, and that is really important. And you noticed that it helps them swim. Now, that tail is not the only fin that sharks have. They have a lot of fins, and each fin serves a very specific purpose. Now, they all help the shark swim, but they work in different ways. So if you're watching those fins, Junie is right that the tail fin is the one that moves the most. So when the sharks swim, they are going to be using, oh, our zebra shark just went right across the screen, and you can see they move that tail fin more than any of their other fins. Now, they need all those other fins to swim because they help with other things, but Junie is right, that tail fin moving side to side, just like this, you can put your hands together and move them side to side, is what is going to push that shark forward. So imagine if their tail wasn't moving at all, they'd kind of stop. Because their other fins, their side fins, which are called their pectoral fins, and that top fin, called their dorsal fin, they're pretty stable. They don't really move too much. But that tail fin's the one that moves side to side. And so that is going to push that shark forward. So that's why the tail fin is really important for the shark to swim, because it's what moves that animal forward. Now, as we watch our sharks go by, as I mentioned, those pectoral or side fins, they don't really move too much, but they're used for steering. So think about an airplane. They have wings on the side, but not like a bird, right? They don't flap their wings. So those wings, or not those wings, those fins are used for steering. So they'll kind of lean to one side or the other and help them steer or turn as they're moving through the water. And then that dorsal fin, that fin on top. Let's see if we can spot a dorsal fin on our sharks. Of course, as I mentioned that, the sharks all go to the back of their exhibit. But we can see here comes one of our reef sharks right here. Look at that dorsal fin on top. There's one. This shark, our gray reef shark, has a really big dorsal fin. So that dorsal fin is really important for balance. So sharks, they need to stay upright, right? We don't want our sharks doing some somersaults in the water. And if they didn't have that dorsal fin on top, because of the shape of their body, they would spin in a spiral. Think about when you throw a football. If you can throw it correctly. I definitely can't. I'm more of a soccer player. But if you throw a football, you want it to move in that spiral direction. And that's because of the shape of that ball. But for our sharks, their body is kind of football shaped, but they don't want to spin in a spiral like a football. And so that dorsal fin on top helps them stay upright. Now, if you look at our reef shark, so that's that shark swimming by right now, and then our zebra shark that just went by, their dorsal fins are shaped a little bit different. Maybe we can bring up a picture of first a reef shark. Excellent. So this is what a gray reef shark, we have 3 of these sharks here, and take a look at this dorsal fin. Now, if we were going to name the shape that dorsal fin is, what would we call it? It's got 3 sides with points. You're right, a triangle. So their dorsal fin is pretty triangular shaped, and this one is pretty tall. So take a look. Remember what the shape of this dorsal fin looks like. And now we're going to take a look at a zebra shark, which is another type of shark that we have here. Now, it's kind of hard to tell with this dorsal fin, but it's right back here. And it is triangular, but it's not as pointed as that reef shark. It's sort of a little bit wider, maybe has a little bit of a curve. And that's because the dorsal fins can be different sizes. And they're all going to be triangular, but that triangle may be less pointed, a little bit more rounded, or even taller. It just depends on the species. But that tells us something about the shark. The size of the dorsal fin tells us about the speed at which that shark can move. Now, a lot of sharks will swim pretty slowly. We see them just kind of moving along. And right now, it looks like our zebra shark and our reef sharks are pretty much moving at the same speed. But that dorsal fin tells us that these sharks can pick up their speed and swim faster. So the larger the dorsal fin, the faster moving we know that animal can go if they need to pick up and have bursts of speed. Now thinking about these animals, why might they want to pick up and have bursts of speed? Because right now our sharks are pretty much just sort of swimming around, enjoying the sun shining in their exhibit, moving past the camera, moving past each other. So they're not really picking up any speed, but why might a shark need to pick up speed? I'm going to pose that question to you. You can go ahead and text in that answer. While we think about it, I'm going to look at some of the other observations that have been sent in. Ms. Wolfberg's class, thank you, Ms. Wolfberg, for joining us. Elijah said, do they eat fish fast? Ooh, excellent question. And that kind of relates to why they might move fast. So, sharks might move fast to catch their food, and then they're going to eat their fish really fast. And that's because they want to get the fish in their mouth. They don't want the fish to swim out. And they also don't want any other animal to come and steal their food from them. So they're going to try and grab their food as fast as they can and then swallow it as fast as they can. Now, Omar wants to know, can you swim with sharks? Ooh. Raise your hand if you'd like to swim with sharks. Cynthia's raising her hand. I'm raising my hand. I have actually swam with sharks before. I got to swim with whale sharks. But look at the animals in here. Do you think you'd want to swim with them? I definitely would. These animals are so cool. And yes, you can swim with sharks. Now, it kind of depends on the type of shark, and there's different ways to swim with sharks. Some sharks live in the shallow, so you can just go snorkeling with them. Sometimes you might need scuba gear, or you can even go cage diving and swim with some larger sharks. So yeah, you can definitely swim with sharks. Now, I know a lot of times kind of sharks seem like these big scary animals, but they're actually really nice animals. They're pretty docile, most of them, and they pretty much mind their own business. They don't really mind us as long as we give them their space. And we even have our divers come into this exhibit to clean, to make sure all our animals are healthy, to move things around in their exhibit, and our sharks don't mind it at all. All right, and Dina wants to know, similarities and differences between sharks, and the megalodon. Well, the megalodon is a shark, but think about the megalodon. Let me see, I think I have a megalodon tooth I can show you. Now, the megalodon is a shark, and so it's the same type of animal as we're looking at here, but it was much larger than most of the sharks here. Now take a look at this tooth. If I hold it up, it basically covers my entire face. which means that the animal that had this tooth in its mouth had to have a really big mouth to fit all these teeth. Now, megalodons, they are extinct, which do we know what that word means? I bet a lot of us have heard that word before. It means they're no longer living on our planet. But we know they did exist because we find fossilized teeth. Now, scientists can look at their teeth and they can estimate things about an animal. We can kind of take a guess about the size of them. Like, scientists think based on the size of the teeth of a shark, or of the megalodon, that their mouth was about the size of almost 2 doorways. So if you're in a room, whether you're at home or you're at school, if you look at your doorway and you imagine 2 of them next to each other, that's about the size, maybe that's a little bit bigger, but that's about the size that scientists estimate the mouth of a megalodon. Now, that's really big, and it means it has a lot of teeth in it. And so the megalodon, oh, we've got a turtle sighting right here as well. The megalodon was just a much larger shark, so it's got a lot of similar features. It has those same fins, it has teeth, it had gills, it swam using its tail just like the sharks here. It was just a lot bigger, which means it had to eat a lot bigger things. So great question. All right, let's see. We've got some more questions coming in. Margaret from Virginia wants to know, how many fins do sharks have? Ooh, let's bring up a picture of our shark. Let's maybe go back to our reef shark. Now, go ahead and count. I'll give you a moment to see if you can count how many fins this shark has. Now, keep in mind, we're only looking at one side of the shark. So they might have some on the other side. We can kind of see them peeking out. So let's see. We've got 1, that dorsal fin. And then they have 2 pectoral fins, 2 and 3 right here. 1 here, 1 here. So far that's 3. And then they've got these little ones here. There's 4. And then this one on the other side is 5. We've got 6, 7. And then the tail fin. Now, it depends if you want to count this as 1 here. And then the bottom part. Or just as 1 total. So I'll say 8. So 8 or 9 fins. And it does kind of depend. These smaller fins can be a little bit different depending on the species, but they have a lot of fins, and like I mentioned, they're all really important to help that sharks swim. Now, fins are a mark of not only sharks, but fish, which is interesting because sharks are actually a type of fish. But does it look like this fish right here? Not really. So this is a Garibaldi. This is a bony fish. So we break the groups of fish down based on their skeleton. So think about the skeleton inside your body. It allows us to stand up really tall. It allows us to walk and run and dance and move around. And so that makes up our skeleton is made up of bone, just like the skeleton of our fish, like the Garibaldi. So if we were to look inside their body, their skeleton would be made of bone. And then they have their fins, just like our shark did, right? Fins here on the top, their tail fin, these fins at the back, their pectoral fins, more fins here. And all those fins are used for swimming just the same way as a shark, except for most fish, instead of using their tail to swim, they actually use these side fins. Now, it's not true for all fish. There are some fish that will mostly use their tail fin, but most fish do use their pectoral fins. And we learn these things just by making those observations. So if you're wondering how a fish swims, all you have to do is watch how that fish moves, and that'll give you an idea of what fins they're going to be using. Now, in our shark lagoon here, where we have both the bony fish, like those ones going across the screen right now, and then we have our sharks. Their skeleton is made of cartilage. Now, like I said, our skeleton is made of bone, but we do have cartilage in our skeleton, or in our body. Can you point to where you have cartilage in your body? Did you point to your nose? Or your ears? Or even between your joints? Hello, turtle. So we have cartilage at the end of our nose and in our ears, and it's really bendy and flexible. And that's what the skeleton of our sharks is made of. And that allows them to be really fluid swimmers. When they swim, they kind of move their body in a really nice, slinky way. This is Theo. He is our olive Ridley sea turtle. And sometimes we don't see him at all because he can take naps for 4 to 5 hours. And sometimes he likes to come and interrupt our shark programs because he wants it to be about him. We'll see if Theo comes back. But that was Theo, our olive Ridley turtle. He does not have a cartilaginous skeleton like our sharks do, and he swims very different. But he's going to use his flippers in the same way that sharks use fins to swim. Oh, here he comes back. See, I knew it was too soon to move on from Theo. There he goes. Excellent. So our sharks, they have that cartilaginous skeleton, and that helps them when they're swimming. It allows them to move really fast, to turn really quickly, and to be very flexible and very graceful swimmers. All right, so we have some more questions that came in. So another question is, do the sharks eat the fish in the exhibit? Great question. So you've noticed through your observations that there are lots of fish in this exhibit. So we've got the bony fish. They're hanging around the coral. There's one right here that just kind of disappeared. Oh, there's a bunch coming right here. And then we have our sharks. But you notice they don't really mind each other. They're not really interacting with each other. And those sharks, they don't eat those fish. And there's a couple of reasons why they're not going to be eating those fish. So one reason is those type of fish are not the main food source that shark would be eating. So even if they were out in their natural habitat, they would not be eating those types of fish specifically. There's other types of fish that they would be hunting. And also, we feed our sharks enough so that they're not looking to eat anything in their exhibit. So this is a cool view. This is above Shark Lagoon. And what we're watching is a feeding or training session with our sharks. Now, you heard that right. We do train our sharks. And that's so that they feed at a specific spot. They learn where they're going to get their food. And that way we can monitor what they're eating, how much they're eating, and make sure each of our sharks gets enough food. So this is one of our zebra sharks. And they know exactly the spot where they need to go in order to get their food. I love the zebra sharks. They're so cute. And so we keep very close records of what our sharks are eating, how much they're eating, when they're eating, and that way they are not looking to eat the other animals in their exhibit. So cute. All right, more questions from Ms. Wolfberg's class. Can sharks swim in salt and fresh water? Ooh, interesting. Can sharks swim in both fresh and salt water? Now, you might think off the top of your head right away that they can't, right? We think about most animals who live in the ocean, which is salt water. If we put them in fresh water, they wouldn't be able to survive. And most animals who live in fresh water, if we put them in salt water, they wouldn't be able to survive because that water is different and it affects their body differently. And that is true for most animals, but not all animals. And there is one shark whose body has the ability to adjust to that change in the salinity or the amount of salt in the water, and that is the bull shark. So the bull shark, which is not a shark that we have here at the aquarium, they can be found sometimes in rivers because they'll swim out of the ocean and into freshwater bodies of water, and sometimes people find these sharks there. So there are a few animals, like the bull shark, who can survive in both fresh and salt water. Great question. And then, are there any types of hammerheads at the aquarium? Well, I am glad you asked. I'm going to give Stacy a moment, and she's going to bring up one of our other exhibits where we do have a type of hammerhead. Now, this is the smallest type of hammerhead, or the smallest of the species of hammerhead. It's called a bonnethead, and that's because of the way that the head, or that hammer part, is shaped. It's kind of like a little bonnet like someone might wear. Oh, right there. Oh, we caught it just in time. Now, we can watch for another minute or two and see if that shark comes back, but that is the type of hammerhead that we have here. Now, it looks really small, and it is pretty small. It's only about, I think, about 3 feet or so. But that is full grown. Now, not all sharks are really big. Some sharks are only about 2 or 3 feet long, and that bonnet head is full grown at 3 feet. Let's see if we'll spot it again. Now, this is our tropical exhibit. So this is an exhibit inside the aquarium. It's our largest exhibit here. Oh, I just saw it go by in the background. So we have to take our time to spot the shark in here because there's only one of those bonnet heads in here. We have a couple of zebra sharks in here, but I haven't seen them moving around too much. Often they hang out towards the bottom of the exhibit. And then we do have a bunch of rays and other fish in here as well. So we'll give it another minute to see if we can spot our bonnet head before moving on. Because there was one shark that let's see. We spotted it right here. Whoop. Excellent. So we did get a chance to see that type of hammerhead that we do have here at the aquarium. Now, I see Cynthia writing things down, but I'm going to start talking about the one shark that I did want to talk about today, and that is Big Guy. Now, Big Guy is not a species of shark, but Big Guy is a sand tiger shark that we have here at the aquarium. And I wanted to talk about him today because he has made it back to our Shark Lagoon. So that view that we were watching before of our Shark Lagoon, you may have seen Big Guy swimming around. And he just recently rejoined our Shark Lagoon. We had him in a different exhibit while we were doing some studies with him. But he just recently moved back. And so when you're watching a webcam now, you're able to see Big Guy. Now, Big Guy we affectionately call Big Guy because he is a pretty big guy. And he's the largest shark that we have here at the aquarium. And like I said, he is a sand tiger shark. Now, I was doing a little bit of research before the program, and I learned that why they call him a sand tiger shark, even though he's not related to tiger sharks. One, they call him a sand shark because they're often seen along kind of close to the coast. So they're seen in shallow waters, and they tend to swim just above the sand. So that's how they got the sand in their name. And then they call them tiger sharks because they like to eat a lot. So just like tigers on land eat a lot, sand tiger sharks like to eat a lot as well. And you can definitely tell they like to eat based on looking at their teeth. They have a lot of teeth, and they kind of stick out at different angles. Here we go. Look at those beautiful pearly whites. Now, we may not think that they look that nice because they're kind of curved. They're not as straight as our teeth would be, but this is a beautiful set of teeth for a shark like this. And they're curved for a really important reason. So we're going to get a nice slow-mo look as Big Guy comes by. So this was Big Guy's former residence. So he just moved from this exhibit back to our shark lagoon. Pretty fun to watch him swim by. He moves pretty slow, as many sharks do. Now take a look at those teeth. So I want to give you a moment to think about why might their teeth be really important. Look at the shape of their teeth and how many teeth they have. And think about what might that tell us about sharks. Can we learn anything from looking at these teeth? So think about that for a moment. You're welcome to text us in or just think about it. And while you're thinking of that, I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we got sent in. So Anthonio wants to know, what are sharks' predators? Ooh, look at these mouths. Look how pretty. They're like gold tipped. What a beautiful smile Big Guy has. So thinking about what predators do sharks have? So it's going to depend on the type of shark. So a shark like Big Guy may not have as many predators as some of our smaller sharks. And we do have some smaller sharks here at the aquarium, like our bamboo sharks. And as I mentioned, things like the bonnethead, they don't get much bigger than 3 feet, and some sharks are really small. And so they are going to have predators, especially when they are young or when they're babies. So some predators of sharks in our ocean could be seals and sea lions. There have even been reports of orca. Oh, here we go. Here's our bamboo sharks. So look, they're really small. They're only about this big. So that's going to make them an easy target for bigger animals like seals and sea lions who might be feeding on sharks like this size. There are some types of whales or dolphins, like orcas, might be trying to hunt down some sharks. Even birds, especially for smaller sharks, some birds that live along the coast or near the ocean, they might target sharks. So depends on the type of shark, but they do have a few predators. And bigger fish. There are some larger fish who are going to feed on some smaller sharks as well. If you think about it in the ocean, a lot of animals are what we call opportunistic feeders, which means if there's food in front of them, if they can catch it, if they can fit it in their mouth, they're likely to eat it because that's a chance for them to eat, and they may not have that chance again. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Faith wants to know, how big is the biggest shark? Well, Faith, I am glad you asked that because my favorite animal in the whole entire world is the biggest shark in the ocean, and it is called a whale shark, and they are just beautiful. Now, I'm going to grab something really quick to show you of the biggest shark because we only have a picture and we don't have too many pictures of them, but we can see them right here. They're just beautiful. They've got this really cool pattern on their body. But this right here, let's see if I can get it in the screen. Oh, this way. This, there we go. Took a little adjusting, is the jaw or the mouth from a whale shark. And you can see here, they swim with their mouth wide open just like this. Ah, you can make your best whale shark impression. Ah, and they just swim through the water with their mouth open like that. Now, we think of sharks having really big teeth, but the whale shark has only teeny tiny teeth, and they don't even use those teeth. They just swim with their mouth open, and they pull in water, and in that water are tiny little animals like krill, which are little shrimp, and small bait fish, and they're going to filter feed the water, or they're going to filter feed those animals. So they're going to push the water out their gills and catch all those little animals. So that is the largest shark. And I think your other question was, what is the smallest shark? And I want to say it's the pocket shark. Is that what it's called?
I looked up and it's
I think we see different things. The dwarf lantern or the pocket shark are the smallest, and they basically could fit in the palm of my hand. So really tiny. As we're discovering more animals, right? Because we don't know all the animals in the ocean. As we're learning and discovering more, we find new species. So it's either the dwarf lantern or the pocket shark, but both of them are about the size they could fit in your hand, which I don't think I told you the size of the whale shark. They can get about 30 to 40 feet, and I think the largest on record is about 60 feet, which if you think about a school bus, that's about 2 school buses end to end. So think about the small shark fits in my hand, and the largest is larger than a school bus. So that's a huge range in size, right? From really tiny to really big. Excellent. And then we have another question. Why do some sharks need to keep swimming and some don't? Ooh, excellent question. Let's go back to Shark Lagoon, see if we can spot. I think they're all being pretty active right now. But that is a great question because a lot of times people think that sharks need to keep swimming in order to survive. And that is true for some species of sharks. So we've got a fish coming in. So we're going to have our reef sharks swimming right in front of us in just a moment. And the reef sharks are gray reef shark and our black tip reef sharks. Those are the ones that we see over, right here. Here we go, this one. They are what we call ram ventilators, which means they always need to sort of ram water or push water over their gills in order to breathe. Now sharks, they're pulling water into their mouth, and then in the water are these tiny little oxygen bubbles. And those bubbles get caught on their gills, and as the water goes out their gills, they hold those oxygen bubbles, and that's what they breathe. So the reef sharks, like this one coming up in the corner over there, and this one down here coming towards us, they are ram ventilators. They always need to push that water over their gills in order to breathe. However, there are some sharks like our zebra sharks, so that's the one, right here, we can see. They have something called spiracles. Now you may have heard that word before, spiracles, when talking about rays, because stingrays also have spiracles. But what spiracles are, it's a hole right here behind their eye. Oh, that's the eye right there. As the picture moves. Right there, that hole behind the eye, that is their spiracle. And what the spiracle is, it's basically a hole that pumps water. So it opens and closes, and it's able to pull water in and over the gills of the shark while they're not moving. And so they have this, we call it an adaptation. It's something on the animal's body that's going to help it live or survive in its habitat. And an adaptation of some sharks are having these spiracles that open and close and allow them to pump water over their gills so that they can take a rest on the ocean floor. So sometimes we'll see our zebra sharks sitting on the sandy bottom, and that's perfectly fine because they're able to create that water current on their own. But a shark like the gray reef shark, if we take a look at that picture of the gray reef shark that we have, so if you take a look, it's got its eye and it has its gills, but there's no hole in between that space. And that's because they don't have those spiracles. They need to keep moving in order to push water through their mouth and over their gills. So it's just how some sharks are made. Some have the spiracles and some don't. Now, it can depend on where that shark is going to be looking for its food. For our zebra sharks, for a lot of our other smaller sharks, especially right here along our coast, they're what we call bottom feeders, and their food is found along the bottom. And a lot of those tend to have spiracles, so they can rest on the ocean floor. Whereas a lot of the sharks that live out in the open ocean, like our bigger shark species, like our great whites and bull sharks and blue sharks and makos, they don't have those spiracles because they're going to be out in the open ocean where there isn't a lot of ocean floor for them to sit on. So here is a pretty recognizable shark. This is our great white shark. And you can see they've got their gills right here and their eye right here, but no spiracle. So we know that this is a ram ventilator. It's going to need to keep swimming constantly. All right, everyone. We are already out of time. That went by so fast. You all had so many great questions, and I could, of course, keep talking about sharks for the next couple hours. But we've got more programming to bring you in just a little bit. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. But our next program is going to be about sea turtles, just like Theo, our friend who kind of interrupted our programming. But what's really neat is this program is going to be in Spanish. So if you are learning Spanish, if you speak Spanish, if you want to start to learn, tune in with us at 10 o'clock to learn all about sea turtles. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.